Well, okay, and continuing on to the third place in which the writer of Matthew has taken a passage out of context and twisted its meaning is Matthew chapter 2 again, and 2 verses later, verse 17. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, In Ramah there was a voice heard, lamentation and weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not. This passage comes out of Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 15. Thus saith the Lord, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children, and refused to be comforted for her children because they were not. This is not referring to a future event in which Herod would slay all the children 2 years old and under in the town of Bethlehem in an attempt to secure his throne and kill the Messiah. From what we can read in the history books that have survived after the church burned so many of our historical books, and I believe did that to try and cover her tracks and to make it very difficult for us to find out where this Jesus character actually came from, what religion it actually was before the name was changed to Jesus, although we have many examples of that, many similarities between other Savior figures. Acharya S. has a couple of excellent books on that, which I have here, but not readily at hand to show you on camera here. But there is the Sons of God, Jesus, Buddha, and Krishna, and it goes into great detail showing the similarity between Jesus Christ and Buddha and Krishna. There's also the Christ Conspiracy, also by Acharya S., the greatest story ever sold. And again, a very monumental work that is plenty of bibliographies in both of these books, and you can go through and find out the similarities between all the other pagan deities and Jesus Christ. This passage, as it was originally recorded in Jeremiah, was not referring to Herod killing any children. What it was doing is referring once again to the nation of Israel and the nation of Judah, the tribe of Judah, when they were carried away into Babylon. I say Israel in a very loose sense, or in meaning the people of the southern kingdom of Judah. Israel, the northern kingdom, had already been carried away at much earlier time in history, according to the biblical records at any rate, by the Assyrians, and they never returned. So they're always spoken of as being the 10 lost tribes of Israel. We, in fact, don't really know if there ever actually were 12 tribes of Israel, as is portrayed in the Old Testament. We don't know that for a fact. It is quite possible that there never were 12 tribes. There may have been more, there may have been less. The Old Testament as we have it now was written by Ezra and 5 scribes that he had hired to do this in Hebrew characters. So in other words, even the very alphabet that the scribes used to transcribe the Old Testament were invented at the time. So it is kind of a misnomer when we're told that the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books of the Bible, were even written by Moses. We, in fact, don't even know if those books existed prior to the time of Ezra and prior to the time that the nation of Israel, meaning the tribes of Benjamin and Judah, were released from captivity in Babylon. But that is what these verses were talking about in the first place, is, as I showed you the last time, Israel, being the Son of God in the Old Testament, is now spoken of in this verse as Rachel's children. Rachel crying for her children because they were not, because all of them were gathered together and they were taken captive into the land of Babylon. This is the captivity that I mentioned when I did a video on the genealogy of Christ, and pointed out the fact that Jesus is, in fact, according to the, again, Gospel of Matthew, a descendant of a cursed bloodline, because Jeconiah, being the next to the last king, in line with Solomon and David, received a curse that no one of his seed would be able to profit sitting on the throne of David and rule anymore in the land of Judah. It was Jeconiah, in fact, and his mother that were taken away. So all the nobles were taken away, and their sons were killed. There were probably some stragglers, unimportant people, paupers, unskilled workers that were left behind. But for the most part, anyone that was a craftsman, anyone that had any intelligence, anyone to speak of, education, I should say, anyone that had any abilities of organization or leadership were taken captive into Babylon. And this is what it was talking about when they said Rachel was weeping for her children.